right, well, our next session today is called Farm Voice, the farm of the future today. And it's brought to us by AdFarm. Let's check out the screens for more.
Farmers and ranchers make choices every day. Decisions that drive both their operation and the future of agriculture forward. But you can't see or hear those decisions from the road. To hear the real voice of agriculture, you've got to meet it in the field. And just listen. Farm Voice does exactly that. Farm Voice by AdFarm is a diverse, one-of-a-kind community of North American farmers and ranchers with a vested interest in the advancement of agriculture. By joining Farm Voice, you're joining a group dedicated to sharing the real voice and perspective of agriculture. Whether it's helping guide accurate marketing and media representation or advocating for future policy changes, Farm Voice is a platform for influencing the current and future state of ag. It's an opportunity for your voice to be heard. It's also an opportunity to be part of something larger than yourself. Along with incentivized research, you'll get the ability to grow your network and connect with other farmers and ranchers on topics that matter. Through digital surveys, focused conversations, and specialized events, Farm Voice gets to the heart of what matters most, and sometimes, more importantly, what doesn't. We all agree there could be more of a farm voice in agricultural marketing and beyond. Are you ready for your voice to be heard? Visit adfarm.com/farmvoice to learn how you can become a member.
Okay, I think we're ready to get started here. So thanks to the CrossRoads Conference for allowing us to have this panel discussion. I'm looking forward myself to speak to some farmers and get some farmer insight at this conference. So my name is Bryce McKenzie. I'm the Director of Strategy at AdFarm. I'm excited to be moderating today's panel discussion. I'm joined by a great group of innovative farmers today. We have Larry Woolliams, Jason Schneider, and Terry Aberhart. Today's discussion will be centered around innovations farmers are implementing today and what they're looking forward to implementing on their farms in the future. So let's get into it. I promise I'll let these guys do the majority of the talking today. Larry, Jason, Terry, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourselves and give us a little background on your farm operation. Larry, do you want to get us started?
Thanks, Bryce. My name's Larry Woolliams, owner of Woolliams Farms out of Airdrie. 9,000 acres, we're generational, fifth generation farm, cereals, oil seeds, yellow peas, and getting more into the forages for better rotational purposes.
Jason?
Great, Jason Schneider. I am a fourth generation grain farmer down in Vulcan County. We operate McNabb and Schneider Farms. I operate that with my wife. I was pretty proud to be a fourth generation agriculture producer, and then I met her. She's a sixth generation agriculture up in the Rocky View and Bighorn area. So yeah, we farm about 3,000 acres of crop. We were a mixed operation, but we weren't as passionate about the cattle as maybe previous generations were, so we're kind of doing a bit of a transition, getting more into grain farming, and then because I guess I can't sit still and I say yes to things. I also do serve as a county councillor for Vulcan County. I've served as a reeve now for about 8 years, and that's taken me to some pretty interesting places and has been able to allow me to also sit on the Rural Municipalities of Alberta Board, which has given the opportunity to kind of bring that rural Alberta and that agriculture voice onto quite a few different panels, both at the provincial and the federal level. So it's yeah, I guess I don't sit around very much, but it's been a fun ride, and yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Yeah, Terry Aberhart from Langeberg, Saskatchewan, own and operate Aberhart Farms, just under 19,000 acre dryland grain farm, and we run an agronomy consulting business as well. We're a little bit of the baby of the generational group here at only third generation, I guess, but really glad to be here. I'm the import from Saskatchewan to Alberta for the conference here, and yeah, we really are always been interested in precision agronomy, looking at new things, and just that's kind of my passion and what I get excited about, playing with things and looking to the future. So glad to be on the panel here today.
Great. Well, that kicks us off well into our first kind of topic of conversation and the fact that you are all third, fourth, fifth generation farmers. So my first question is, since you took over your operation, what are some of the biggest technological advancements that you've implemented on your farm operation since taking things over? Maybe we'll boomerang around, Terry, if you want to get us started.
I was hoping I would get to go after these guys, but yeah, I guess I was thinking since we, I started managing the operation, there's been all kinds of stuff. When you think about the evolution of change over the last 10 or 20 years, it's been pretty phenomenal. But I guess for us, some of the key things would be implementing precision technologies, variable rate, a lot of the machine controls. Most recently, we moved more into, there's a lot of different automation that we use on equipment. So with our combines, with autopilot and things like that, we have operators from someone who's very, very experienced to someone who has no experience at all. And so to be able to program in different metrics that the combine can essentially drive the way that you want it to, we see that all the machines are kind of operating evenly. We try to use a lot of data, so things like weather stations in the fields. We record all of our different application data, different benchmarking and things like that. So just things that help us make better decisions. I mean, we came from a culture in agriculture where lots of times you made decisions based with your gut, and sometimes we still do, but we're trying to evolve that more and more to where we're making decisions based off data, and sometimes that data can surprise you because what your bias is or what you thought may be something different.
Jason?
Well, that was a great answer, and I wish I would have went first now because I definitely kind of agree on the data side of things. Being a smaller operation, our equipment isn't brand new right off the lot. We're usually, we're the second owners of it, but it is incredible now the amount of data that we are collecting, and it's really trying to make good use of that because, I think probably like a lot of farmers in the room, when we were taught to spray, it was kind of like that's about right. That was kind of the method we did, and the same thing with fertilizer. You had a blend and you used that because that's what your grandfather used, and so we've really gone away from that. And then the other thing is just the amount of passes, the amount of time we're out in the field. I was just actually talking with my dad not too long ago about it, and he said, we used to wear tractors out. Like we just would absolutely, diesel was cheap, so you just were out there all the time, and now you look at your four-wheel drive tractor, and I mean, if you put 175 hours on it, it's been a pretty busy year, so it's just very interesting to see how it's really morphed in our area to that, it's a lot of efficiency and a lot of just making sure that we're doing things as even as economical as possible because of the cost of everything has gone up so much. Previously, you could take those guesses and it didn't cost you that much, but now, a couple pounds of fertilizer, it adds up in a really big way.
Yeah, I really wish I'd have went first now after following you two. We're the same, auto steers, sectional control, exact apply, and anything that we can do to try to improve efficiencies, whether it's trying new seeds, chemicals. We've even developed a straw buncher which will collect all the straw and chaff off the back of the combines to feed the livestock with, which in turn, will give us more organic matter. Trying to tap into that carbon market as well and get some money back into our pockets. It's fun to see how this has changed, and if you talk to like Dad and stuff, or even if Grandpa was still around, Dad's like, I never thought ag would be in the direction that it is right now, and the future, I think is very bright.
Awesome. So, as you look at your operation today, and some new technologies that are out there that maybe you're looking at right now, and maybe it's some new technology that you're currently implementing on your operation, or maybe something more in a short window within the next 1 to 2 years you're kind of looking to implement on your operation. Could you provide us with some examples of some things you're kind of speculating looking at right now? Larry, I'll kick it back to you.
So for us, the drone technology is coming into play, and whether we're scouting with it, looking for weeds or variations in the crop, trying to relate that back to mapping from from harvest, doing different, actually to spray with it too is something that's really piquing my interest as well. You know, if we can fly into places where, you know, we don't have a lot of access to check for damage, you know, whether it's hail or bugs, you know, this is a valuable tool that I see in our operation. We're playing a lot with, you know, heavier seeding rates, fertility rates, you know, earlier seeding, trying to see where we can get those bumps and get the crop done earlier. I mean, 1 or 2 snowstorms, it's not real fun at harvest time, which I think some of us remember, unfortunately. You know, like Terry said, weather stations, that's big for us. Like, we're really monitoring the rainfall that we're getting so that we can try to predict what we're going to get for crops, you know, and then, you know, help us move forward to make decisions that way. You know, and then a lot of financials or tech for figuring out financial situations to work with our financial institutions as well.
Awesome. Jason?
Yeah, so obviously I think everyone, you know, the hot topic at every farm conference that I've been to in the last couple of years, it's talking about drones and how you can utilize them, and I'm definitely seeing a lot more practical uses for that, a lot more even economical uses for them, and so that's exciting, and I think that's going to be something that really is taking off. I think, you know, from our operation, I know one of the things that I'm kind of interested in is just kind of the, you know, it was mentioned earlier, you know, the spot and spray, selective herbicide applications. I'm a little chippy on that one because I just pre-ordered some chemical and I'm not too impressed about that price. But you know, ways that you can reduce the cost in there. That's definitely one of the big costs in our area is that the chemical application. That bill gets bigger every single year. So looking at that, also. I was still hoping, you know, about 5 years ago, everyone was talking about the DOT project that got bought out by Raven and it's now been rebranded, you know, where you can get those autonomous vehicles. That's, I think that's really for smaller operations. That's something that has a lot of potential in my mind. You know, we don't need an 84-foot drill. If I can get a 20-foot drill that'll work all night long and I can go to bed, I'm way further ahead. And we've definitely seen that the manpower issue is something that hasn't got any better. It's hard to find people that are interested in you know, working on a farm and want to do that on a long-term basis. You're not just training someone every summer to do the operation. So I'm really looking forward to the day that comes, and I hope it's not that far away. I thought 5 years ago, the way everyone talked at these conferences, that we were only a year or two away from that, but that hasn't necessarily panned out. So fingers crossed. I really think that's kind of going to be one of the big things for operations like ours.
Terry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so maybe a couple things to add to that. I mean, we've been really the last couple years focusing on data, so collecting basically every field operation. I mean, there's a lot of things through My John Deere and other telemetrics, things like that. So that's one thing, and even things like picking stones and doing dirt works. Like we've been this last year, we've got to the goal of like everything is recorded in the field, and we're working with apps like IntelliCulture to track our equipment and vehicles. I kind of joke sometimes because I think it's just part of the farm team to get me in trouble to see where I'm speeding all the time and breaking traffic laws that I shouldn't be, because I seem to be the only truck that's being monitored that way, I guess. But and then also we've been really focusing on field trials, and when you think about the money that you invest in a farm, whatever size you are, it can get into the millions of dollars really quickly. So we've really kind of been nailing down into a precision field trial process where we can strategically place the right treatments or trials in certain areas of the field and then compare that by zone. And in the last few years with the different weather patterns and drier patterns, there's actually been some really surprising results that maybe aren't too surprising from an agronomy standpoint, but seeing things such as once you get to a certain point in nitrogen, if we put too much nitrogen on, we're actually losing yield. So there's scenarios where I think a lot of farms are applying extra dollars that are actually going the opposite way, which is the worst kind of precision result that you want. And one thing that we're thinking about a lot on. I think when we think about farms and technologies, we always think about the equipment and the agronomy and and that kind of thing, but we forget about what the most valuable piece of the farm is, I think, is the humans and the human energy on your team. And so we're looking at different systems of communication and how we use that data to engage our team. We created actually our own app in the last year, or our team did, where the team can input benchmarks of how much they seeded each day. So we have targets of what we want to seed and spray every day, and we can look on the app and see if we were above or below that. Even something as simple as which fields got picked for stones on a larger farm with lots of things going on. That's things like that are easy to miss or forget. And then we have videos and instructional data SOPs, so our team can kind of go onto this app and everything's in one simple spot for them. So those are some of the maybe highlights of the stuff that we've been working on in the last year or so.
I can speak to that technology with your team, Terry, because I know when we had a meeting together, we had your AI assistant join us before you jumped on there, which is a little creepy to start, but it was actually really helpful and a really cool tool that you use to take meeting notes and takeaways and stuff to make sure everything's captured from meetings.
Are you sure I wasn't
Yeah,
an AI generated on that meeting?
Deep fake, Terry. Thanks, guys. Yeah, no, it's really interesting to hear. We hear a lot about technology and things that are out there, but to actually hear what's happening on farms today, I think is really insightful. So I think all of you had mentioned this at one point when you're looking at innovations or investments that you're currently looking to make on your farm, but how do you balance that cost or calculate return on investment when it comes to either new farming equipment or new technology? What's that spreadsheet you pull up, or how do you kind of calculate that? So, Terry, we're going to just keep doing the boomerang thing here, so.
All right, that'll equal out. Or at least
Yeah.
we're not always in the middle,
Yeah.
so that's all right. So I was thinking about that. There's kind of usually two ways, and the first way is if there's a simple calculation equation. So you take something like sectional control, you do the math. It's things like that are kind of a no-brainer. Some things are more complicated, but this is where the data comes in. I've always had a bias, as an example, to tired tractors, right? And tracks cost more, and I don't know if they really make any difference. And so we thought as a team that it was a lower cost to operate a wheeled tractor. And then we looked at our data. We have two drills that are the same. One's a wheeled tractor and one's a track tractor. And we calculated all the costs, but the track tractor was burning a lot less fuel. And so the overall cost of operating was actually lower on the track tractor because of the fuel savings, which was different than our bias. So some of those things are really easy to figure out if you can look at the data. Other things are a little bit softer. So you have to look at where do you want to go in the future, and sometimes you have to make those investments and build towards that, and it may be something that's not easily measured, whether it's how your team works together or different things like that. But ultimately, just kind of setting that target of where do you want to go, what's the success criteria, what do you want to achieve, and what are the measurables that you can use, whether it's strict financials or agronomic response, or it's something different. I mean, it may sound simple or silly, but one of the things that we've been focusing on is, again, with our team, is culture and team health. Well, there's assessments that you can do, and so we started doing the same assessments every year, and we just benchmark our numbers to what we did last year, and did we improve it or not?
Jason?
Yeah, so being on a little bit on the smaller end of operations, it's there's always new technology coming out, and definitely that cost is something you really have to weigh. The economy of scale sometimes doesn't work necessarily in our favor all that much. So a lot of it is watching, seeing if you can actually justify the cost and if there will be that long-term cost savings. But we've really found that it's even just like simple things now with all the data that you can collect. I mean, I think every field I have all sorts of different zones that I set up, whether it's, what if you went a little bit faster? What if you went a little bit slower? What if there was 5 more pounds here? And really be able to, take that data and see if it is making a noticeable difference. And I mean, I found on some of it, even just slowing down a little bit, which is also always counterintuitive, but you slow down a little bit, with the equipment that we have, and we saw an increase. And so you can justify that it's going to take you, a few more hours, but you're gaining more, and that's something that really doesn't cost anything. It didn't cost us $5 an acre to have someone analyze it. It was just something practical we were able to do. The other thing is, I mean, our labor it's primarily me and Dad when he's around, he helps out as well. So I mean, it's really about that efficiency. Like how can we continue to keep moving and we're not stopping down and having to run back to the yard? How do we really streamline things? So I mean, they're really not very high tech solutions that we've come up with, but thanks to the data, we've been able to really kind of be able to quantify that information and make ourselves a little more efficient. And with that efficiency comes some cost savings, because I mean, it's big numbers. I mean, it's as you get more and more acres, it gets to even bigger numbers. But even it is every year you're putting a lot of money on the line, and if there's any way you can be more efficient or more cost effective, it's definitely it's worth it in the long run.
Yeah, we're the same. I'll analyze at my John Deere. I'll be looking. We had the same experience as you, Terry. Wheel tractors versus tracks, and found the same. I'll look at it and break it down to a dollar per acre through spreadsheets. Efficiencies, how many acres an hour can we gain? We've already got auto steer that drives straight, so why not do a curve track even though we're dryland farming? At harvest time, we saw a significant increase in productivity with the combines and carts, just doing a curve track. Even though it was an experimental thing and the crew was ready to kill me. But at the end of the day, the data showed it. And, when it comes down to the efficiencies as well. Can we make money? Can we save money? Is this a piece of equipment that we're going to buy to put money in our own pocket? Is it something that we can, hire out a little bit to help the neighbor versus paying, your local ag retailer or whatever, right? That's kind of how I look at things, and if I can make that payment to where the farm can sustain it and put money in my own pocket, it's kind of a win-win, right? I mean, margins are tight, and as the bigger you get, the numbers are staggering.
Yeah, I think efficiencies will continue to be a theme as, it's going to be harder and harder to expand our farm operations with the price of land, and it's getting more out of it. So, okay, I want to take a little glimpse into the future. I think we all took a pretty big glimpse into the future with a presentation earlier this morning and some technology out there that's going to be impacting us one day. But when you look at the future and you look at what's out there, what are some technologies or practices that your operation might not be ready for today, but might be in the more distant future? And I mean, this can be as far out as 20 years when you're looking to maybe slow down and pass the farm off to the next generation. But anything that's a little bit further out down the road that you're excited about? Larry, we'll get started with you.
I don't know if I'm a little nervous to bring up the AI conversation, but I think there's a lot there. We have some insight in some futuristic stuff. How the tractors, the autonomous, are driving all by themselves. There is something to be said about that. And labor comes into play. And these will always be working. When we're not, right? The futuristic side, yes, that's going to get bigger. But there is a cost to doing that. But does that fall in line with everything else? You put all these different seeds and chemicals into it. We have to continue to try to evolve and grow more, with less. Like in our area, land gets gobbled up, by infrastructure. So it's harder and harder to expand around here. So how can we produce more with less, right? Using them 4 Rs, or that's why we do a lot of seed trials and chemical trials. The other side of this is, farming is a multi-million-dollar business where I think is still portrayed as we all have pitchforks and a corn pipe, basically, right? Well, you know, I think when these kids that are coming out of, men and women are coming out of college, university, you're seeing that we're very high tech, and we're pretty quiet for most industries, and you know, I think that the tech side and to have a louder voice is going to be helping to move us forward for the future.
So yeah, we talked a little bit about some of the things coming down the pipe, and I think the presenter the first presenter of the day, you know, showed some of them, and really it's I do think the AI side has a lot of potential in the farming world. Every piece of land is a little bit different, and I think when you can, you know, when you look at the price of it, you know, if you're able to use technology to maximize every single acre, no matter what size your farm is, I think that is beneficial to you. We were joking before. I don't know if we wanted to talk about AI after the first presenter there. There was a little bit of doom and gloom on some of that there, but I do believe that in chaos comes opportunity, and I think right now, you know, that is a chaotic world, and there's all sorts of different ideas. But I think there will be some practical applications that are going to help farms of all shapes and sizes. And I mean, we talk about this being such a big transition, and I mean, my journey back to the farm, I took a little detour into the computer engineering world, and I worked in that industry for a bit before I realized I really hated big cities and wanted to be back on the farm. And I mean, we've seen this before. I mean, there's a lot of the technologies that have come out that have been pretty disruptive, but in the end, it's just, you know, we adapt and we figure them out, and we figure out how we can use them for the best. So I do think that is going to be something in the next 5 years that all operations are going to be able to utilize a little bit more. I mean, right now we've got data coming out of our ears. I mean, everything is being recorded, but you know, it can, you know, sometimes that can be expensive. You know, there's a lot of companies and a lot of consultants that want to, you know, for a couple bucks an acre, you know, we'll look at your data and then we'll make you recommendations. I really think though that'll be much more automated, and it'll be a lot more economical. And then, like I said before, I really hope that you know, I want the one that does the mechanical weed control there. It can, you know, we live in a windy part of the world, and that sucker can go all night and can, you know, whatever, poke weeds out of the ground. I kind of want that thing.
Terry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I'm very excited about the opportunities of AI and agriculture, and I know there's always there's the other side of that. You know, I don't think we're getting to the Terminator movie anytime soon, but and I think there's always that fear. I mean, when the first tractor came out, you know, no one thought it was going to replace the horse, and you know, the industrial age, no one was going to have a job. Well, I mean, these things, they just ebb and flow in my mind, and so when you look at, you know, see and spray opportunities, we're using AI every day. I mean, if you've navigated anywhere in Google Maps, like, you're using AI. We've been using it for years, and so I think that those kind of things are really, really transformational and really exciting. I mean, we know that we have grand issues to solve, whether it's consumer demands, climate change, or climate smart commodities, whether, you know, whatever your opinion may be on that, there's things that we need to do better. And one of the things that we're fighting against, in a sense, is the mindset of where agriculture has come. And a lot of agriculture has evolved to these, like, very large equipment, very large brushes, because of the lack of labor in agriculture. And a lot of that, in many ways, has created other huge inefficiencies of dragging huge equipment, heavy equipment across the field, and putting a field into one, you know, continuous system, where that's actually not the way nature intended it to. And so I see there's a real opportunity in the future with autonomy and robotics and information. The reality is, we did a lot of these things because we didn't have better information. We didn't have the ability to analyze a field on a per plant basis. Like, imagine the capability now today to be able to map not every single plant, but not even every single wheat plant, but every single weed and name them and know where they are in the field. Like there's no possible way a human could manage that type of data. But we have that type of information now. We can make much better decisions. And I see a future of agriculture where we're going to go back a lot to the way it was when we first came here. And, you know, we feed the cows up on the hill, and that's where the manure should go, and the gardens on a different spot. So I see a lot of these large fields will go back to be farmed. Maybe there might be three or four different crops, and the plants won't all be seeded in a row because that's just the way the machine needed to do it. But when we have a little robot that can plant seeds in a little micro amount of fertilizer, whatever it may be, the possibilities are really endless. And it will take us a while to get there, no doubt. But I mean, I remember as a kid watching Star Trek, and they were talking with these little things on their ears, and it's like, wow, that's like so futuristic. Well, that's normal today, right? It's not that long ago. And so there's some pretty exciting change, I think, coming, and it's going to take a while. But once it happens, it's going to happen way faster than we thought, like anything else in technology. And I think also just our human ability to manage technology, it's kind of scary at times and overwhelming. But a great quote by Peter Diamandis is like, AI is not going to take your job. Someone using AI will take your job. And I think as farmers and leaders and people in the industry, we just need to start playing around with these things. And that's what I've done a lot of, just for fun, in a sense, or just trying to understand it. And I'm still a total baby when it comes to using some of this stuff. But I make a lot of presentations in some of the stuff that I do, and with a little bit, probably 2 or 3 days of playing around, I've learned how to take ChatGPT in a program like Gamma, and I can make an amazing presentation in like half an hour, something that would take me 8 hours or a couple days of work, and it still needs some, but the more you play around with this stuff, it's amazing. And there were some examples. I didn't catch all the presentation this morning, but there is some amazing simple stuff like Scribe AI, where you can just do whatever you're doing on your computer, and it will record it, and it'll make a whole SOP with you with videos and prompts and in minutes. Like there is stuff that, as we move forward in agriculture, one of the biggest challenges is how do we take what's in the brains of these guys up here and spread it across more acres, because there's less and less people. We're a tiny part of the human population, and not everybody wants to come back to the farm. So how do we take that knowledge and scale it autonomously, you know, across all these acres and all these challenges that need to happen? So that's a little bit about where I see things going.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, I think for myself, and it kind of sounds like it's similar to just fall in that middle category when it comes to technology, that probably a little bit scared of it, but the excitement probably outweighs the fear in a lot of ways. So back to the technology conversation, and we look at future innovation, and this can be for you as an individual or your farm operation, or you can speak to, you know, more agriculture as a whole, but what do you see as the biggest roadblocks to adopting innovation on your farm in the future? So things like broadband internet, government policy, anything else out there that you see as the biggest roadblock? Cost is probably going to be a big one. Terry?
Yeah, I think the biggest fear roadblock a lot of times is just fears. The fear of change, right? And as much as I do love technology and some of these things, but it can be super frustrating at times where it doesn't work, or you put a lot of effort into something. And so one of the things that, you know, we've done is try to look at things as a bit of a 3-year kind of timeline, or 3-stage, where you got to figure out where you want to go or want to get to at the end. But there's always that starting phase, which is really painful, and it's not going to work very well, and then kind of a refinement, and then eventually you get it. Hopefully by year 3, you've worked the kinks out and it just becomes normal. But I think what happens a lot of times, and I think part of the industry and people trying to sell this technology to us is partly to blame, because they market it as the easy button. Well, just take this software program, or just plug these things into your tractor and it'll do everything. And that is absolutely not the case. And so then people do that and it doesn't work, and then they get frustrated, and I'm never going to do that again. And so there is that frustration, and then I think just it does take some pain and some learning. But if you can get to the other side, it's going back to the cell phone analogy. Like if we took everyone's cell phone away today, like I don't know if anyone would be able to get home, like literally. But when these things first came, I remember, the boom control on the sprayer. Like we first tested one of those systems, or the auto steer, and our sprayer guy was like, I'm never going to use that, and it's not going to work, and you can't replace a human. And then he ran it for 3 days, learned how to use it, and then the subscription ran out or whatever, it shut off, and he's like, oh my goodness, like when our GPS goes off on our tractor, like we sit there at the end of the field and like, what do we do now? I guess watch a YouTube video or something, right? So I mean, it's just, this is the world that we live in, and just you embrace the pain, I guess, to get the goodness on the other side.
Jason?
I think we can just move to the next question. I think you nailed that one. I mean, obviously, the return on investment is a big part of it. Everybody that has a new technology, like you said, it's the greatest thing ever. It's so easy. Even your grandmother could use it. And working in the IT industry for a few years there, we made a pretty good living on putting in new technologies and then spending a lot of time trying to actually get them to work and work like the person wants them to work. So what usually ends up happening is you get this great new technology, you have all these options, and then people just use the one little thing of it, right? It's like you have your whole GPS system, and it's great. It makes you go in a straight line, and everybody likes that. You can sit on TikTok and text all your neighbors and tell them what they're doing wrong while you're going down the field. But there's 50 other options that are on there that a lot of people just aren't utilizing. So the training on it is huge on this new technology, and especially as you're bringing other people in. And I know we struggle with if I figured it out. I got an engineering degree. It's not, it comes pretty naturally to me. But when Dad gets in there, I don't know how he breaks it every single time. Like he's pushing buttons and it just doesn't work like it's supposed to. So I know that's one thing that we've really kind of struggled with a lot of the technology, is that it takes a level of technology skills to be able to actually run it and utilize it, and it's like even with all the collection of data, right? When Dad gets in there and screws up all the buttons and pushes what he shouldn't have, and then doesn't record any data for the whole field, I got this big black spot in my data. So it's a work in progress, and but it is definitely it's a challenge that we struggle with, to just actually using it and training people.
Yeah, I agree with that. The adoption side is you have to be open-minded and adopt it and learn how to use it. You talk about auto steer and it goes to the end of the field and it stops working. When that happens, we all swear Dad has 5 cell phones because everybody's just ringing all at once. And heaven forbid if we have to steer this thing. But if we don't adopt this, we're not going to move forward. And by bringing some of the new generation into it, they have embraced it, and then they'll shed other lights on it for all of us to embrace, to help move forward with it. I think that's the only way you can go about it.
Yeah, and I'm going to circle back to Terry's point too, because my next question is going to be a selfish one for me, because I'm a marketer, and I think we probably have some salespeople in the room too, and mentioned sometimes we do a terrible job with that in terms of just selling you the easy button when it's not exactly that when it comes to new products or new innovations. So I guess my first question around that topic is, how do you currently learn about some of these new innovations and new technologies? Is it through trade shows, through talking to other farmers, doing your own research? What's the best way for you to learn about some of these things that could help your farm? Larry, I'll start with you.
So for me, it'll be podcasts or talking to agronomists, go online, and then just even me thinking, being kind of, what can I have, what's out there to make my job a little easier, and then I'll start doing some research about it as well. It's so evolving so quickly, going to the ag smart farm there in Olds, like you learn these different things, and with these trade shows and talking with gentlemen like these two, and yourselves at conferences like this, you learn a lot.
Jason?
Yeah, I usually find that, you know, the way you learn the most about how something actually works is you talk to a neighbor or somebody in the area who's actually used it, right? The manual or the salesman usually has gives you a base, but you know, when things go wrong, they sometimes isn't a whole lot of help. And I'm the kind of guy that if something's going to go wrong and it's the first time it's ever going to go wrong for that product, it's probably at our farm. So I do have a little bit of an advantage having a technology background. I kind of, as coming back to the farm, I was kind of like, I don't know why I went to school for computer engineering. That was kind of a stupid thing. I should have went and got an agriculture degree. Would have actually helped me out. But as the years go on, actually, I think maybe I actually did it in the right order here. And so I obviously am a little more in depth with some of that. So it's a lot of reading, and I'm kind of skeptical on some of the stuff. So I really kind of do get in depth and do put a lot of effort into making sure that that product I'm buying is actually going to do what I want it to do, and if not, how am I going to make it do what I want it to do? So, but yeah, I really do find that usually it's talking to people who've actually had that field experience there. That's by far the most valuable thing when making a purchasing agreement or making a purchasing decision on our farm.
Yeah, similar to the other guys, I think the first way is learning from others that have stepped on the rakes themselves to save some of that pain and just at conferences, networking, researching, learning. I always joke that I was a terrible student. I never learned anything in school, but I've been learning ever since. And I think it's a bit of a mindset that you have to adopt, that some of it is things that you have to take a bit of the pain for yourself too, and hopefully protect yourself from getting hurt too much. But every situation is different, and people need different things out of technology. So I think one of the keys is kind of adopting kind of that mindset of continuous learning. And again, I kind of stole this from Taylor Phillips, Producer's Edge. He's got a great mindset around this. But again, kind of starting with that goal in mind of where you want to get and why, and then working back and then knowing the steps that you got to get through. And we just have that mindset that when we initially start something, it's going to be pretty messy. But we kind of have that wherewithal to kind of get to the end and know that it's going to take a few stages of iteration to get there, just like any first version of any product is. Another big thing is just find the who's, right? Like if you're not a technology person, you're not someone that likes solving those problems. It's really about support, whether it's the color tractor you drive or software that you use. I mean, having people that can support you and train you and invest that time into training. I think that's one thing where we lack a lot is we don't invest that time into the training and then we expect a different result. Like, I mean, if we were going to go write the bar, we would probably, not do very well if we didn't spend a whole bunch of time learning and doing research and getting educated, right? So at times we have that expectation is that this should just all work and we don't have to invest that time to learn and get the training. We've had that experience in our own farm, even with some softwares that we work with that the team is really frustrated with and like, oh, we got to go get something else and this is garbage. And then we set up like a training session with the right who's and they're like, oh, I guess, yeah, we can fix that problem. But the challenge is today too, some of these companies and or softwares or technologies don't have a lot of good support and that is where there could be some improvement for sure.
Right. Yeah, and I kind of want to jump a little bit further into that conversation as well, because you guys are obviously introduced to new technologies all the time. There's new crop protection products coming out, new soil health products coming out, new seed traits. But for a totally new technology, and if there was a startup with something that you haven't used before on your farm, a total new product, what advice would you give to that company and to help sell that product to you and for you to try it on your farm? Terry?
Yeah, so this is actually a mindset or some advice I got from Lisa Prazik Advisors in the US, and it was a bit of a aha for me. I think in the industry it's become a pet peeve like farmers are always used as the guinea pigs, right? And it's like, oh, here, take this jug of this and, you know, spray it and give us the data back. And a lot of times we would be like, yeah, we'll do that, or we'll try this thing and take all the pain. But the reality is, you know, these companies need to be looking at the right farmers and partners to work with as consultants. I mean, if you were building some other kind of business, you would be paying someone like that a lot of money to help validate and refine your product, right? And we've probably done that a little bit ourselves, and I don't want to sound selfish, but it was a bit of an aha for me. Is like, yeah, if we're gonna, I find a lot of these products are new things, are at very beta stages, and they come to the farm, and it's like, I'm telling you what you need to do to make your product better, and taking my time and resources and energy to do that. So what's in it for me, right? And so I think there needs to be, and that sounds maybe selfish, but it is very true. And there's no other industry that would approach things like that. So that's one of the things that I think needs to change, and find the right partners or collaborators to work with, and reward them accordingly with whatever that may be. And your product will be way better. You'll have a way better result. Because I've seen this hundreds of times over, where people think they have the solution, and then they bring it to the farm, and it's like, well, that's not what I need, because they all think they know what we need, but they don't. It's kind of like me thinking I could read my wife's mind or something. It's not going to happen.
Well, and I think that's very true. I think the other thing in agriculture that is unique is that it's every area is so much different than each other, right? You can have your test plot down in Iowa, and everything works great, and then you ship it up to southern Alberta or northern Saskatchewan or wherever, and it just doesn't work as advertised. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for companies to really harness that innovation that farmers have. I think we've all bought that piece of equipment that's all shiny, and it's 2 days later you're grinding off some bracket and reinforcing it, or you're putting your farmer fixing it somehow to make it better. And I think that they could really take advantage of that kind of actual farm testing, because it always works differently when you have it at your test plots or at your factory. And then it's just that being able to support the products, especially when it comes on the software end of it. You really need to have that support, and it's hard because everybody's starting to get in the field at the same time, and everybody's calling all at the same time. But you do have to make sure that follow-up is there, because really what usually happens, we've all probably used software or an app or something, and you try it doesn't work, and you just go, well, screw this, like I'll go find another app, as opposed to actually wanting to work through it, and because our time's valuable, and but I think that recognizing that as a developer of whatever is hardware or software, I think you could get a lot of valuable insight from joining up with farmers all over the place, and not just in one region, because we do things a lot differently in southern Alberta than I'm sure either of you do in the areas that you're in.
Yeah, I agree. We do a lot of trials as well, in the field, and it takes time. It costs time, and yeah, we are being consultants, and I don't think you're being rude by saying what's in it for me, because that's exactly my mindset as well. And when you come, I'm going to ask you the data. I'm going to ask, where have you used this? And if it's not even close to my area or province, I'm really skeptical on how you think you should tell me how to do my job, right? You have to have open-minded, open ears to hear how it works in our area, for your product. I don't care what it is, for me to try and work. And are you going to support it, right? What happens if there's a failure? Because at the end of the day, that's my living. So how are you going to back that up and support me if you wreck my crop or something like that?
Awesome. Well, we are closing in on our time here, and I'm sure this room's getting ready for lunch, and I want to leave a little bit of time for questions. So I'm going to wrap it up with one last question, and have each of you just give maybe a quick response. But for the farmers in this room that are looking to either expand their farm operation or make it more efficient, what's one piece of advice you'd leave them with in terms of making advancements and setting it up for success in the future. Larry?
I think the one thing that I would leave with you is continue to be open-minded. Give these young men and women out of college or university a chance. They bring a lot to the table. It's just a different mindset on a different way of thinking. You know, give them the opportunity. I think it's going to really help you grow in your operations today.
I think you have to be curious. I think you have to be willing to look at new technology and new ways of doing things and different ways of doing things. You know, there's a lot of things out there that, you know, we're doing now that, you know, my grandfather would have never done. So I think you do have to be curious, but I think you also have to be skeptical on things as well. Like, I think you have to try it out. You know, you don't want to jump in with 2 feet in the deep end. You do have to make sure that, you know, it is going to work for you, and you know, you can be skeptical, and, you know, make the salesman work for the sale, right? Make sure that you are getting what you actually need, and taking the time to do that, because yeah, you can waste a lot of time and you can have a lot of frustration if you don't take all that into consideration when you're moving to something different or adopting a new technique or a new product.
Yeah, I think the comment on just bringing in different viewpoints from outside agriculture and young people, or even just people outside agriculture, is really good, because I think we get stuck in our mindsets. But I just think about, you know, the Einstein quote, like, if, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So, I mean, if you wanna see something different, you got to do something different, right? And so don't be scared to figure out what those things are that you want to figure out, and be careful, but you gotta take a chance. You're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. It's just part of the process.
Awesome, thanks guys. So yeah, I think we have 10 minutes left. If there's any questions, either in person or online. Okay, they come up for me here. So maybe I'll just go through some of these. If anybody is really anxious just to jump in and answer it, we maybe won't go through all 3 of you to answer the question, but I'll start with, how do you implement strategic planning, communication amongst owners, partners? Anybody want to jump in on that one?
Well, I guess I farm the least, so that it's a little easier for me. I'm at the stage of our transition where when things go good, it's we did great, and when things go wrong, it's my fault. So that's definitely something, you know, as we transition, it's we every once in a while experience the same issues that you know, when the next generation takes over. But to the credit of my dad, he's been extremely great. He's allowed me to change things and try things, and like I said, sometimes when they work out, great. It's we did a good job, and but then yeah, there are times where it's not. So it is a challenge, and I mean, I know that there's going to come a day where, you know, my kids are going to be taking over, and I'm probably going to have a harder time letting go maybe than my dad did. But you know, it's really just you know, having those conversations, and you know, it's a little bit easier. We don't have a whole bunch of partners all involved, so we can if we have a disagreement, we know who to argue with. But yeah, it's just having those conversations, and a lot of it's actually long-term planning. That's something that my grandfather didn't want to do. His succession plan was, he literally showed up one day and said, "I'm moving to Arizona and I'm never coming back." And I kid you not, it was like, that was the transition plan. He said, "You guys better figure this out." And you know, so I know with my parents, we've had a lot of, you know, kind of, you know, what's going to happen in 5 years, what's going to happen in 10 years, what's going to happen in 15 years, and it's made the conversations a lot easier. And yeah, I'm hopefully not gonna get a day where they show up and say, "Hey, we're moving. Yeah, good luck."
Larry, did you want to jump in on that one, or?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, being transparent with my partners, the communication, and, you know, I have a lot of spreadsheets and the data to back up what I'm doing. So whether it's working with, you know, my financial institutions, my accountants, landowners, or whatever it is, transparency and honesty is the best way to go forward for me.
Yeah, we've always been a big proponent of strategic planning and having annual planning sessions to know where we're going and people aligned towards their goals. And I guess in the last couple of years, we've adopted a framework and a system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System within our businesses, which is just a great, very, very simple framework of tools and systems to set your vision and your goals and align your team on partners on those priorities. It's been really good.
We use Traction at AdFarm too. It is pretty good. Okay. Another question comes up on the screen here so I can see it. I will ask it. Here we go. Terry, what is the name of your app? Is it available to the public?
Oh, that's it's Aberhart Farms app. We built it ourselves. We got to talk to Taylor Phillips from Producer's Edge and my team. There's so many apps and tools out there, so I don't even know how to describe it exactly. But it uses jot forms in behind, and it actually costs us like $500 to put together, and there's a bit of time and effort, but there's a lot of things I don't understand at all because there's people smarter than me that did it, but you can't download it off the App Store because it's just our own internal thing, but it's just called Aberhart Farms Team.
Apologies, we got a question too in the room here as well, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. My name is Stephen Senjik. I'm a director with Alberta, British Columbia Seed Growers. Just had a question for you, gentlemen, with respect to the information that you shared with us. You touched on a lot of technologies with respect to machinery and equipment and new technologies with respect to data collection. I think that's all great. I think it's very good, and thank you for sharing all that. One thing that was noticeable is we didn't hear you talk about genetics on your farms and new varieties and pedigreed seed. We'd like to hear a little bit more about how that is a priority within your operations, because obviously you gentlemen were selected on this panel because you're leaders within your communities. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that and where that falls within the priorities of your operation, and how important the genetics, like we heard yesterday, and replenishing those genetics with pedigreed seed and moving forward with new crop innovation. Thank you.
I take this. That's a great question. So we do a lot of trials with seed, canola. We're doing some wheat trials this year. It's big for me because I fought for years to try to get trials out where I'm at, and the comment was, well, you're too close to the mountains, we're not going to get true data. Well, to me, that's the best place, because if I can grow it, you guys can all grow it. So we do them every year. This is how I learn, this is how I evolve, this is what I'm going to grow, or I don't want to grow because it didn't work here, and it's piqued a lot of interest within our county. So it's helped bring different seeds in and different companies so that we can learn together.
So probably being a smaller operator, this is probably one of the things that I haven't invested as much time and effort into. We've done a fair amount of seed trials over the years, trying to make sure that we are getting the best return from our seed. We're in a little bit bad streak here in southern Alberta, so a lot of my field trials haven't really necessarily panned out as well as I was hoping, or been able to get the data to really show the differences, and even the comparisons on on a dry year. Unfortunately, even farm saved seed to pedigree seed in our area hasn't shown the returns that I was kind of hoping to be able to show. So we're playing with it, but just with the size of our farm, we can't get too carried away with that, just because there is a bit of a time commitment to doing a whole lot of these field trials, and that's something that we have to be pretty cognizant of in the spring when we're trying to get our crops in the ground, is to make sure that we're not spending all this time on things that aren't netting us as much return. And so I obviously kind of rely on the field trials that other people are doing and that the companies are doing, and trying to keep a close eye on kind of learning from them as opposed to more doing it on our farm.
Yeah, great question. I mean, the value of genetics and pedigreed seed and all those type of things, it's critically important, and it's ever evolving and changing as we move forward. I guess, one of the reasons it probably didn't come up in my mind is that's something that I clearly see as a lot of value. It's maybe a bit more of a given, and it's the industry is doing, I think, a really great job of advancing those things and demonstration trials and stuff like that. So it's not maybe something that's in like my world of things that I'm figuring out. We always look at the best genetics. I think one interesting thing in that area is, you know, can we use blends of varieties, and this variety on the hilltop and the sandy soil and this and the lower slope and those kind of things, to get more out of that field or that acre. But yeah, it's a huge part of advancement of technology, but the farmer doesn't, you know, necessarily directly, you know, I wish I was making plant genetics and selling them off of my farm, but I'm not.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think this is going to be our last question, so I apologize if there's more than one, but we'll let everybody get to lunch. Okay, this is kind of a fun one to wrap up on. What podcast do each of you use to learn about possible technologies or products you'd be interested in adding? I think it's fun because I'm a marketer, but you might not think it's fun. So.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to the Growing the Future podcast that we run about some of that stuff, but there's, I think there's a few other ones, like there's a Future Farm Tech, and I don't listen to as many podcasts as I'd like to. I actually listen to a lot of other non-ag podcasts around technology. Peter Diamandis, he's got amazing stuff. You just follow him or any of his books or podcasts around where technology is going, and it's pretty mind-blowing, but that's kind of my comments there.
Yeah, Terry named one there too, and I do the Real Ag podcast as well, and I'm kind of drawing a blank on the other one, but you know, to sit there and listen to podcasts all day long, it doesn't happen, but if there's something that comes across that piques my interest, that's when I'll grab onto it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I kind of, you know, there's none that I probably listen to on a very regular basis because I have a part-time, full-time job being on municipal politics, so I'm usually on the phone more than I am, which thankfully GPS makes that a lot easier. So yeah, I probably listen to more on the technology end than on the farming end, but it is definitely a great resource to learn more, and there's lots of them out there, and everybody's going to get something out of different ones. So I'd say with any podcast, you know, keep looking for the next one until you find one that really kind of strikes home and resonates with you.
StoneX has a really good one.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks, guys. That wraps us up. I want to thank each of you once again for joining this panel discussion and sharing your time and thoughts and insights. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to join this, and I think that's on behalf of me and everybody in this room as well for sharing your thinking. And I think it's time for lunch, so we're all done. Thank you.